Hello and welcome back to Ensuring Success, Day 2. We're so happy you're here with us today. We're about to have a session on how to create a niche practice, and we will work with you on that. But first, in addition to thanking you for being here with us, we would like to take a moment to thank our sponsors who have made this event possible. So we'd like to run through the list of those real quickly. Our sponsors include ADP, Ace Cloud Hosting, CPA Charge, Avalara, BotKeeper, ComplyRight, Corpay One, CoreV, Sage, SureLink, TaxFile, CPA.com, eFile for Biz, Intuit, Vic AI, Wolters Kluwer, Xero, QX Global, Right Networks, and SafeSend Returns. So thank you to all of them. We would not be here without the help of our sponsors. And in particular, we'd like to thank Intuit, who is the sponsor of this session. So thank you to everyone who's making this event possible for us. Let me explain real quickly how Cpe works in case you are just joining us for this session. And if you've already heard this 13 times or 12 times, I apologize, but here we go one more time. Cpe we will present to you 3 codes during the session. They will appear at the bottom of the screen. Each code is a 3-digit number. You need to write down that code or record it somehow. And then at the end of this session, or the end of the week, or whenever you're ready, you can go to the EnsuringSuccess.com site and click the Get CPE option at the top of the screen. You'll enter the email address you used to register for this conference, and then enter the codes you collected at all the sessions that you attended, and then you'll be able to download your CPE certificates right there on the spot. I'd also like to mention that we will be sending you an email, we being CPA Practice Advisor, within the next week or so, which is information from all of our sponsors. It includes white papers, some special offers, and general resource information from those companies who are sponsoring this event. So keep an eye out for email. It will be our digital tote bag coming from CPA Practice Advisor. Also, I'd like to point out that if you scroll down on your screen under the video window, there's a blue button that says Ask a Question, and you can click that button if you would like to either ask a question of our tech team, or if you have a question about CPE and how that works, or if you have any questions for our speakers, you can go ahead and click that, and those questions will be feeding here live to us. So with that, we'd like to go forward with starting this session. This session is called How to Create a Niche Practice, and our speakers today are Geni Whitehouse, Aaron Berson, and Jim Buffington, and my co-moderator is Alexandra DeFelice. I'd like to have each of our speakers go ahead and introduce themselves briefly, and I'm going to start with Jim, and then we'll go around our group here. Jim is remote with us today. So hello, Jim.
Gail, thank you. And through the wonders of technology, I'm able to be photoshopped in. Thank you. And let me just say, Gail, congratulations on another fabulous conference. I think just great lineup of presenters and topics, and just fabulous conference again this year.
Thank you so much.
This is a topic I get excited about as the leader of advisory services for Intuit accountants, where I work with our Intuit Tax Council, a group of leading customers out there, and I get to learn many best practices and try and share those out with the industry. And one of those is leading with advisory services and creating that niche practice so that you can really be the expert in your space.
All right, Geni.
Hi, Gail. I'm Geni Whitehouse. I'm with a CPA firm in Napa Valley called Broke Markle Davis & Company. We focus on wineries out there, and I have the honor of working with them. Been there 14 years, and it's been an absolute pleasure. Aaron?
Hi, I'm Aaron Berson, founder and CEO of Fringe Advisory. We're an outsourced accounting, controller, CFO practice doing business reimagination and other various accounting processes, basically.
And I'm Alexandra DeFelice for the 13th time, Director of Marketing and Business Development for Payne & Fears Law Firm in Orange County, California, and co-moderator with Gail Perry yesterday and today.
All right, thanks everybody, and so glad all of you are here and all of our attendees are here joining us today. We're going to start out in this session about niche practices, letting you know that it can be either niche or niche. We had a lengthy discussion about this, and they mean the same thing. You can pronounce it either way you want. But let's talk about what we mean by having a niche practice. What is that? Jeannie, why don't you start? Because you happen to have one.
I happen to be part of one that I didn't build myself. So I'm lucky to be in a firm where they are established a focus. We're in Napa Valley, so it makes a lot of sense to have a wine industry focus. But to me, it means a concentration in whatever area you choose to concentrate in. And I think it can be focus on an operational aspect of the business, like you can have a point of sale niche, or you can have an industry focus, or you can have, different levels of focus. But I think it's about really defining what it is that's common across your customer base or your client base, and then trying to find people that align with that. So whatever it is, however you define it, I think is okay. There's some people who think it has to be one way or the other, and I think you can really focus in whatever way works best for you. And then there's just economies of scale and all kinds of great things that happen as a result. And again, I didn't have to build it, and I have the benefit of really being able to concentrate my own efforts on a particular industry.
Yeah, I think that's one really important thing that we talked about earlier, and even some other speakers that I've spoken to, is it's not a vertical, which I think that's historically how a lot of people have talked about niches, is like everyone who does wine, for example, or something to that effect, whereas like someone said that they do founder-owned or involved businesses was their niche, right? Because that takes a very special skill and way to talk to, a founder who's very involved. It's their baby, they're doing everything. So I think that is a big distinction that a lot of people need to understand is still a niche, right?
And and don't feel ashamed if your niche is like e-commerce is a niche.
Right.
Because there's a lot of expertise required for that particular kind of client, and you can really benefit from that. What does Jim think about it?
Yeah, Jim, what do you want to add?
Our remote.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the great things is that as owners of our small business, owners of our practice, we can define exactly what that niche is, and we can define that based on company parameters. Some people even, like to have a passion for working with certain types of people. They may love working with nonprofits that, are out there helping and making a difference in the world. And so you can define the niche however it is that works for you, wherever your passion is, wherever your expertise is, wherever you want to focus. I think what we're trying to do, and it's not maybe even 100% of your clients in your practice, but just move away from the traditional mindset that you have to accept every client and be that generalist and be able to serve all of them equally.
I think that's a big lesson. I know we've all done this. We've all started our own practices, and we took everybody that came along because we had to have the work, and we were freaked out about not being able to pay the bills, right, Aaron?
Oh, yeah.
And you really spread yourself way too thin. You do all the services, you do the tax, you do the financials, you do the computer consulting stuff, you do all the implementation work, and you end up doing a lower level of service for a lot of people and burning yourself out. I think it was very easy. And I really didn't even know how lucky I was to fall into a niche or a niche. I'll say for the Canadians, if there are any online, so some of y'all hear it said the right way. You'll let the rednecks say the French word. So, and I'm from South Carolina, so that's why I have the Southern thing going on. But it really does, and because I've been doing this, and I also do marketing, I do outreach and training and education, and I do work with software vendors that serve the wine industry, I really didn't know how lucky I was to be able to focus. And every time a new law comes out, I know exactly how it's going to apply to my clients, and I don't worry about the provisions that don't work for that space. And I know you can do the same thing.
Yeah, no, same thing, but I agree. You spend a lot less time researching and trying to figure out how changes apply, and you can specialize. I mean, I'm guilty of the same thing, accepting everyone that comes in. I mean, I started my firm 5 months before the pandemic, so perfect timing if you ask me. But it started 5 months before, and then the pandemic hit. It's like anyone and anyone willing to come. But then, when I reevaluated everything a few months in, I happened to naturally actually build 3 verticals and niches in just my client base because it was all word of mouth. So people talk to similar companies that are all word of mouth, and that's how I've built my niches. It's just kind of where I migrated and naturally fell.
So before we get any deeper in there, I think we have to take our first CPE break. Yeah.
We do. We'd like to take a brief CPE break. We will do a quick commercial break to hear a little bit from our sponsor, and I take it back. We're not doing a commercial break until later in this session. So we're just going to display the first CPE code on the screen right now. So it's at the bottom of the screen. You want to record this code for future.
Kind of a
scary code.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, God.
Thank you for
Halloween
that one.
code. Hint, hint. Those of you who aren't watching. And there'll be 2 more codes that go with this session a little bit later. So we're talking a little bit about what a niche is. Why do we want that? Or why might our clients want us to have a niche? I'm going to head over to Jim real quickly first to see what he thinks about that.
Well, every client wants to feel special, and they want to feel like you're speaking directly to them and you understand their business and you're a partner in that business. So when we focus in a specific area, it really makes our job easier to communicate and educate when there are changes in the laws, when there's better tools available, when there's better processes available. We can speak directly to that type of client, whether they're professional services or e-commerce or maybe construction industry, and get very specific and giving them little nuggets that help educate them and help them improve their business. And then they feel, again, like you are making such a difference in helping power prosperity for their business, as opposed to just maybe more broad, general kind of education and newsletters. Or every time the customer asks you a question, you have to say, okay, I'll research that and get back to you. Being the expert, being proactive, leading the way, avoids a lot of those reactive type questions, and they just are gonna, it's a better fit for you to communicate directly to those type of clients.
I think you also learn the terminology in those industries and those verticals a lot too. So you can connect a lot better with your clients because you're speaking their terminology. Like if you have doctors, you're calling them patients, not customers or clients. Like that's very different, right? And to them that resonates, I think, a lot more than we realize, right? So just that.
Well, I think it gives you permission to build higher when you know the lingo, when you know the language, when you know the challenges that these folks face. They come in and you can already say, yeah, I imagine you have this, 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 and they go, wow, you do get me. You know, it's a very different experience.
Yeah.
But the big benefit for us has been the ability to go beyond just serving that client. So because we have multiple winery clients and because we do speaking and outreach and things, and we also do advisory service. So it is a natural doorway into advisory when you're focusing like that, because we can also go work with all the software vendors that these folks work with. We work with all the agencies that support them. We work with all of the ancillary things like the barrel makers and all of these other things, and the farming companies and the vineyard management companies that work with them. So we have access to all of these things around that help us grow our business and our practice, but also add additional consulting service. So I can call up a point of sale solution provider in Napa Valley and say, I've got 150 winery clients and we need you to fix this thing, and I have a lot more weight so that I can influence what happens for those clients as well. So that's a huge benefit. I know you can do the same thing.
Yeah, same thing. I mean, I have a lot of digital media influencer type clients, and just also bringing best practices to them of what you see in other clients that are similar to them. Like, they don't know, they're operating in a silo. So if you can come to them and say, I've seen this, 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 and this, like real world, not reading a paper of someone else doing a research study or something like that, right? I mean, we're all guilty of it, but I mean, that goes so much further with them.
Yeah, we're all reading research papers, Aaron.
Okay, fine. That's, I like reading FASBs to go to sleep, okay? Okay, FASBs and IRC and the new PPP codes and everything, yeah.
You have a girlfriend, right, Aaron?
I do.
She's not seeing you, bud.
Sometimes, some accounting firms my old law firm specialized in like 6 different industries. They go even further, and they'll like go to their industry events. They'll read their Winery Monthly or whatever.
We're speaking at all those events.
And it's not just accounting stuff. It's so that they're like, whoa, those are their issues about this. Those are issues about this. And they're like, holy cow, you're here? What are you doing here? So
it's a huge opportunity to establish expertise as an individual and as a company and all of those things, and to get exposure across places. And their events are always looking for people who can communicate well, especially on these topics. You want to get our remote friend in, Jim? You want to add
here, Jim?
Yeah, I totally agree with everything you're saying. And I think it also, too, for the firm, creates much more capacity when you can scale your services, when you can standardize what tools you're operating, with all those winery clients or digital media clients. And then you can help your staff create more capacity. Again, that ultimately leads to higher billing. But you're serving your clients better, you're helping them prosper better. You're able to really focus on the key metrics that are important for those clients, especially when you're going to those conferences and you understand the trends and the implications that are changing for that type of client. And then when you can apply business strategy, business acumen into that, that's what they need. That's what they're really looking for.
Also lets you be a lot more proactive, right? Because you know what's coming down the road.
Yeah.
If you've seen other companies in that niche go through the same cycles, I mean, you know what's going to happen next for them, which is invaluable to them, and it's not a big lift for you if you've seen it 50 times, right?
That's
right. You seem like you have a crystal ball to them, like it's magical, but you're just applying what you've seen 10 times.
Well, you can see patterns from a distance. We can see patterns across multiple recurrences, and some of the dashboard tools that we use, some of the integrated tools that we use, like Fathom, that integrates with QBO automatically. We can pull in stuff. We can create benchmark databases specific to our own client base, and I can bring real intelligence into those conversations. Yeah. So there's huge benefits like that, but also the connections to associations in which they're involved, and you start to become familiar with those issues as well. You get those clients on board, and so the whole thing grows. But I really want to get back to what you said about sometimes a niche develops automatically from within your own clients because you do a great job for one person and they tell the other person in their same industry, and then you end up growing it that way. So it's a great way to build one by doing excellent service for one client, and then having that person tell all their other, hopefully high-paying other friends to come to you, and then you have a practice before you really even know it.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened for us. We didn't intentionally do it. Right? I think a lot of people think you have to be intentional with it, which definitely helps.
Which is good.
If you are intentional, it definitely helps. I'll say that. It definitely is.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be. But at some point you do have to evaluate and say, okay, now I do have this expertise in these 3 areas or one area, and let me try to capitalize on that so that it wasn't all for nothing or just circumstance.
Yeah.
So then on the flip side, Jim, I remember when we were talking earlier, you mentioned that sometimes people are afraid of saying that they specialize in something because then they might miss out on this client that doesn't fit into this niche. What is your advice there?
Yeah, we definitely hear that from traditional firms who have become very high volume. They're generalists. They're afraid that if they do put their messaging out there that says, hey, we're focusing on this type of niche. And by the way, most firms are between 1 and 3 specialties or niches that they're advertising, that they're messaging out there. It's not always just one, but they're afraid that maybe they will alienate some of their current clients, maybe alienate a prospect. They're always afraid they'll miss that big one, that big client that everybody wants to win. Most of those actually are groomed up. So the truth is, when folks decide to go into a niche, the best place to look and build from is your own client base. It's the ones that you already have a relationship with. It's the ones that you've been serving. They trust you anyway. And when you begin to create that niche, then you can learn from those clients. You can begin to build on that. And those are going to be your best referral sources. Just because you start to message that you're focusing on a specific area doesn't mean your other clients are going to run away. Now, over time, sometimes we do see that firms really want to get focused, and they'll start to segment their other more transactional clients out to the side, maybe assign them to a different group within the firm to service, and maybe even sometimes they even sell that part of the practice off so that they can really invest their passions. But that's probably more of a 1 to 3 year down the road kind of an experience. It's not right off the bat. But
So
every firm I've ever talked to that went into this space, they've always said the same thing. Hey, we were a little nervous at first, but we would never go back to the old way of being a generalist firm. We love what we're doing, and we know that we're adding more value for our clients.
So outside of the industry, I'll start with Jim and then I'll come to our in-house audience here, is outside of the industry, what are some of the characteristics that you should look at when you are defining a niche? Is it revenue? Is it they're adapting technology? I know a lot of us are very tech forward as we've used the term. Is it their communication styles? Is it that they have growth? What are some things that people here that might be thinking about specializing should look at? Is there something like a short checklist?
Yeah, so all of those are great. Many times when I ask firms that, they start with profitability. They want to find, somebody who's profitable, who values their expertise, who values their advice, and they're able to pay for those services.
Yeah.
So they want to start there, but then finding an area that they're passionate about, an area that they can lean into and really add a lot of value, something that they are passionate about. Clearly, Geni's passionate about wine. Just kidding, Geni.
That's right. Drinking it.
She's jealous because we're going to have some at the next session, and she missed it by one.
I should have brought my own.
So what do you guys think of other than industry?
So I would say there's specialties with stage of business, right? Some folks specialize in startups. There's type of ownership that you can specialize in, like family-owned businesses, which is many of our clients in the wine industry. Then there's industry specifications, and then there's technical requirements or complexity. But one of the things that I really like about the wine industry, and I really didn't know how complex it was the areas that you can work in with a winery, because you have a farming practice, you have a manufacturing aspect of it, you have a direct sales aspect, you have a wholesale sales thing, and then you have everything else that's going on. You have tasting rooms in some, and you have e-commerce stuff, so there's all this complexity around it. And so it gives us an opportunity to go deep with fewer clients, which I think if you talk to anybody in the profession today, they were overworked, stressed, and exhausted based on everything we did during COVID. And so we want fewer clients with more depth. And so the niche is the perfect way to make that happen. I know you've seen that too.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. But I'd say also, just to what we said earlier and to your point, a niche is anything that you can say, this is what I'm focusing on, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't, like you said, revenue could be one thing, a certain type of POS system that's used, so you learn everything inside and out about that, or an inventory system, it's just picking something and then saying, I want to be intentional about working and learning about this thing, right?
Yeah, I think it would be tough to focus based on a revenue size. I think that
that's kind of the startup phase. It's kind of revenue.
Stage of business would be an easier way to look at it, because you could have zero revenues for most of these startups, but a bunch of cash, right?
Pre-revenue.
High wealth individuals, is that a niche?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. I think you can define your niche.
Right.
We can't give you a label and say that it must be this way in order to be one. I mean, you can make a focus area however you want to, and whatever facet of that business most intrigued you.
Yeah.
And then
a
really
niche could be
grow it.
really difficult people to
Yeah.
work with, because you're great at dealing with difficult people.
Exactly.
That's a niche that's definitely underserved.
All the people you don't want.
Right,
Yeah,
that's definitely an underserved niche. So
Yeah.
you can do that, but that is, that's a unique skill set. I'll tell you that much.
It is not one that I have.
We're going to take a really quick commercial break, hear a word from our sponsor, Intuit, and then we'll be right back.
Power up your productivity and deliver more value for your clients with INTUIT Accountants. Get to know the #1 family of professional tax software and choose among 3 core software options, with the option to add on helpful workflow tools to get the perfect fit for your practice. If you have multiple preparers in your firm and clients with complex returns, INTUIT Lacert Tax brings you powerful tools to handle it all. Lacert uses an input sheet-based data entry method and a unique combination of tools that have set it apart as an industry leader for 40 years. There's a reason why over 58,000 pros choose INTUIT Pro Series Tax every year. Best for small to mid-size firms, Pro Series offers simple forms-based data entry and one-click access to all your calculation details. Both of our leading desktop software products include the option to add cloud hosting, and both offer easy data import and export with QuickBooks Desktop editions. Lacert and Pro Series also include integrated tax planners and paper client organizers to help advise clients and help them navigate tax season. If you're looking for a fully cloud-based option, INTUIT Pro Connect Tax offers the best of INTUIT software straight from your browser with nothing to download. ProConnect is an online input sheet-based software that gives you the flexibility of the cloud, as well as real-time QuickBooks Online integration. You'll also get tax planners and client organizers built right in. No matter which INTUIT tax software you choose, you'll win back more time so you can confidently focus on what you do best, making a difference in your clients' lives. Now you can expand your tax software with new integrations designed to boost your productivity while working remotely or in the office. See everything going on in your firm in one place with INTUIT Practice Management powered by Carbon. You'll be able to adjust assignments fast and standardize processes and automate away administrative tasks so you can be more hands-on with every client. Bring the desktop tax software you love online with enterprise firewall security and other data protection. Hosting for Lacert or Pro Series reduces IT costs and headaches, offers access from multiple preparers in your firm at the same time, and lets you get right to work anytime on any device, including mobile. Hosting also includes expert customer support at no extra cost. Get documents reviewed and signed securely in a matter of hours, not days, from any device with IRS-compliant e-signature powered by DocuSign. Try any of our core tax software options free today, no strings attached. Visit us online to get started.
Welcome back. We'd like to display on the screen right now the third CPE code for this session. So please take a look at that and record that if you're planning on collecting CPE for attending this session. So we've talked a lot about the advantages of creating or working in a niche in your practice or focusing on a niche in your practice. But say you have a practice and you don't have a great percentage of your clients who are one type, or you're pretty much a generalist, not just in who you serve, but the type of services that you offer. So, but you've decided that we've whetted your appetite here, and you think having a niche would be a great benefit to your practice. So, how do you decide what that niche is going to be, and then how do you go about making that happen?
Jump in there?
Sure. I mean,
go for it, Aaron.
I mean, if you literally have no mixture between, like, no concentration, right?
Yeah.
And you're truly a generalist, I would look at what you enjoy doing.
Exactly.
Right? Like, what motivates you? What do you like reading about? What do you have some kind of personal interest in? Because then that just makes traveling down that niche process an enjoyable one because you actually like it.
Okay, and I'm going to hold you right there for a second before we get a million questions from the audience. I just announced that was our third CPE code for this session, and it's actually the second. So, so you don't have to tell us that we're missing a code. We know it. So that was the second. There will be another one. Okay, go ahead, please.
I mean, picking back, follow your passion, right? That's
Yeah. So I think I built my own practice in Atlanta before I found my way to California, and I had a construction client, and I really enjoyed that because there are a lot of moving parts, and to me I need complexity, enough complexity that it stays interesting for me, and that's the beauty of being in the wine industry because we have all these different things and lots of levers we can push and lots of places where you can add value for that client. Right. And construction. So if I looked at that client and said, I really like this client, I want more like this. Well, obviously, I want to talk to that client and see if they have any friends. Hopefully, they're a social person, and then find out what associations they're in, and then work through that. And that's what we've done in our practice: is work through the wine industry associations. We work with the growers and the Vintners Association and all those supporting organizations, and then we get more connections.
Right. I mean, it's hard enough to ask somebody for a referral. A lot of accountants aren't like you. Yeah. They're not going to say, hey, you got any friends? Bring me your money, you know? But if you go through these associations.
That's exactly how I do it.
If you go through these associations, then they have a ton of clients.
Well, and you start providing educational content for the association. You start establishing that you're going to add value to them, and then they make you a member benefit, and then you start getting in front of a lot of folks, and then you have access to clients.
Let's be honest, too. There's not a lot of accountants at those associations either.
That's right.
So, like, instead of being one of 100 at, like, an accounting conference or something, you're one of 5, if that many. Right, because a lot of people are not getting involved in that, or they get involved for a short period of time, build their niche, they have their connections, they step back. So there's usually a decent amount of room for you to go into that.
And I think another angle is to work through the software. So if you have a partner like INTUIT or any other solution provider, and you're doing something for a particular client, you talk to them about what kind of needs that industry might have and how you can help that software provider communicate with those folks. Jim, would you be interested if we, called you up and said, I got this unique skill, I'll help you?
Absolutely.
Talk about it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think the vendors can really help you get exposure to more clients as well.
So what are you doing, Jim? From a vendor perspective, like what are you guys doing to help people in this arena? What advice? I think you said that. I think we might actually have a handout that's in the tote bag that's going to be about starting a niche practice. Am I wrong with that?
We actually, yes, it's all about a path to advisory, and it was written by our INTUIT tax council. So kind of 14 leading firms coming together and writing a very comprehensive guide. And part of that, one chapter in there, is all about building your niche practice and some good recommendations, some best practices that you can do there. And you mentioned, leveraging clients that you have. Clients today are so willing to write recommendations, give you Google reviews, get out on your Facebook page. They may not be calling all of their competitors and sending them to your office. That may not be how they do it, but there are so many different ways that we can leverage our best clients in order to grow our practice. Showing up at those conferences, like Geni said, is a great way to build your platform and your being known in that industry. And so many people, clients, potential clients, are struggling with the basic compliance things. And when they hear you start talking about these delightful reports that have certain key insights and trends and things that are going to help them really improve profitability, that's just like a breakthrough. It's like, they want to come in there and just give you a big bear hug. So lots of different ways that we can help leverage those existing clients. In the old days, we used to have to do this, full case study write-up, and you'd have it on a PDF slick. Now it's just like, hey, can you write me a Google review? That they would recommend you, and they're going to give you 5 stars anyway. So just some ideas there, but we do have that handout, and it is a great guide written by your peers called A Path to Advisory that really helps you build out that advisory services part of your practice. And it's wonderful to see more firms leading with advisory. We just did a study and found that 18% of firms now are saying that they're leading with advisory services. And I love when Jim Bork was on earlier, because his Witham branding now puts advisory first, and then tax, and then audit. So again, advisory is an opportunity to deliver a lot more value for clients, increase revenues, higher margins, really move away from that kind of overworked, stressed out volume practice to go deeper with specific clients.
So I think, Aaron, didn't you write an article too about using compliance services to create advisory?
Yeah,
clients?
so it was using that as the entry point of the conversation, right? Instead of just going to your client saying, hey, I want to offer you advisory and pay me more money. It's
Right.
like not that conversation. More around like you're talking to them for tax work and other compliance work. So in that conversation, use it as that launching pad to start talking about what else you can do for them. I mean, especially when you do a tax return, you see everything that's going on. You see if they're taking out more loans and taking on more debt or bring on additional partners. So you get a sense of what's going on, and you can give some initial insights without even doing the books or anything else for them. So it's just using that conversation to springboard into some more insightful conversations. And it naturally goes that way, especially when you just take 5 minutes to look at the tax return and see what's going on, especially if you're in a niche and you're able to pull out understandings of if someone's investing in property, plant, and equipment on their tax returns, what are they trying to do, and you can drill into that a lot more. And it's just, you already have that information. You don't have to ask them to tell you anything to start sharing those insights. And I think it's kind of show before they leap kind of thing, where you're demonstrating that you know something that's more valuable to them. And then that often leads to much more conversations around that, I find.
Well, I have another business where I teach accountants to become advisors, and what I'm finding is what we need to do as accountants is shift the way we think about the services that we deliver, and our role needs to be to ask different questions to help our clients uncover the insights that they actually already have,
Right.
but don't know that they have, and then help provide structure around the way that we work with those clients. And so we find that a lot of firms are doing what we call random acts of consulting. We take one client and we do an individual consulting project. And what we're trying to do is help people standardize that and deliver it as a service offering in a structured way. and really start by the first conversation we have, whether a client comes to us for tax or financial statements or specifically for some other problem, is back up and ask them about their business first. What are you trying to do? Why are you doing this thing? Yeah. And that sets the bar higher for every other conversation that comes after that. Yeah. It takes us out of doing the tactical thing and makes us more strategic in the minds of those clients, and then we're open to building an advisory practice. And what we find is people that get the advisory skills then automatically start to niche their practice, right, because they want to go deeper with a client, and it's easier to do that when they're all similar or have a similar aspect to their business. So Jim, I don't know what you want to add to that. Are you seeing that from the advisory stuff?
Oh, absolutely. And, definitely people come in because they have compliance problems, tax, accounting problems. They need to figure things out. But like you said, when you align with the client's goals first, then everything else that you do can help drive towards that. And we know that it's a struggle to get clients to bring us documents, to bring us the information, to keep up with certain tasks and things that we want them. When we start with their big goals and align there first, and we're proactive in making things happen, the compliance work becomes much easier. It actually is less reactive. You get less questions. You get less of those phone calls and emails. Hey, I got a quick question here. When you're proactive, you're way in front of a lot of those questions and things. So aligning first with those client goals, starting with the idea that, hey, we don't just do a once a year tax return. Hey, we don't just want to clean up your books every quarter or at the end of the year. We want to align with your goals, help you reach those goals. And as part of that, we need to communicate a lot more. We need to meet more. We need to, be part of this service level. And maybe it's a subscription or some sort of other revenue model than some of the traditional ones, so that we can help be proactive, be alongside you. And then the compliance stuff actually gets easier and you spend less time on that.
The reason that they come to us for compliance work is because we've trained our clients that if we have CPA next to our name, that means tax, right? We all get asked tax questions at every place because we say we're a CPA, and now we have to retrain them, and so we've got to say there's more to us than just that. Even if we are doing your tax work, we can go deeper by
and I think that's
broadening the perspective.
Right, and I think that's the point of using that as a jumping off point, because they're going to come to us
They're
with those
coming
questions.
To us, and if we stay in that little tiny box and just go to the tax problem at hand, instead of stepping back and going, this is just a symptom of a bigger challenge, let's look at everything else.
And then I think to your point before of asking them, like, what are their goals and where do they want to go, it also sets context around how you have every conversation with them.
That's right.
But if their goal is in 3 years to sell to another company, like,
it's very
very different than someone
a family legacy like my clients are. Yeah.
Exactly. That's very different, investment strategy, how you pull money out, like that's very, very different. And then that just opens up to all these different conversations you can have that you can add a lot of value that's not tax, right? Or if you're doing an audit or something like that, it's beyond that, because it's, well, let's look 3 years into the future. That's what your goal is. How do we help you get there? And maybe it's having regular conversations, maybe it's doing one of 1,000 things, but you can't ever even have that conversation if you're just focused on, well, did you send me your W-2 yet?
Right.
Yeah, and we just jump to solving the fire, putting the fire out, and don't really don't add long-term value, sustainable value for that client, and that's the opportunity at hand for all of us, I think, and we're getting there.
Yeah, slowly.
And I think that, to build on what you were saying, as you were speaking, Aaron, it made me think too, a lot of our audience is thinking, oh, well, I do understand what my client's goals are. But maybe they don't segment their advisory services from their compliance, and they're just doing that as part of that annual transaction. And so they're missing the opportunity for them to add more value in that relationship and the service and make a difference throughout the year. So I think that's an important component too, is making sure that you're segmenting out the advisory away from the compliance activities.
Yeah.
And advisory scares people. We think it's this big, hairy, scary kind of a thing. And one of the things that advisory can be small things, and one of the skill sets that we accountants have is documentation and accountability, right? So one of the services that we deliver is a process review, where we go in and document all the technology that people are using. And that is a huge door opener for helping them fix whatever you uncover. But all we're doing is asking questions and writing down their answers. And that is a service for a company that doesn't have anything documented. So there's an opportunity for us to get in there. And again, if I've got a focused niche, then I do 2 or 3 of these, and I've got a pattern of things that I can see very clearly that happen across the industry. And then you can start working on the technology stuff and some of the other things, but just documenting that is a huge service that you can provide. And by offering that and having those listening skills, you again set yourself apart and elevate your own value.
Yeah, we do that. We call it business reimagination, right?
Yeah,
like
that's
what
way
we
cooler
what we
than my
call it.
title. I like that.
I mean, that's what
steal
we
that.
call it. Like you built your company 15 years ago. Let's reimagine it today with modern technology and everything. And
COVID gave us an opportunity to do that in a way that we've never had before.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. But then also that, I mean, talking about niching, you do that for 1 or 2 clients and you go deep into how they do every process.
Yeah, how does the
You
paper
now
move?
understand that niche or that type of client better than you ever could have imagined before, and you got paid to do it. Right? Because
Make sure you get paid to do it.
Because
Don't
you give
give
a
it
lot of
away.
value in that. Just saying like this is what you're actually doing, and this is what you could be doing, or how you could use one piece of software to cut out 15% of your time in this area, and you don't realize how valuable that is. To your point,
We undervalue our own knowledge.
yeah, and a lot
Yeah.
of people will do that for free just to get that extra
No.
compliance piece, right, or something to get
Get
to
one more tax return.
Right,
Yay.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, and we're going to have our whole next section is again on the way people bill, but how are you billing for advisory services? Are you hourly? Are you value billing? Are you hybrid? Are you subscription? What works? Why does it work? We don't have to get into it too much because we'll get into that. The next panelist will take care of that for you.
We got ed class. We don't need to go there.
But just like kind of, have you changed your pricing model, and how do you explain that to your clients and why you changed it?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. Go, Aaron.
I mean, I haven't changed it because I started it this way, right? I started it with value billing. I mean,
And define that for people that don't know the term.
I mean, it's basic. I mean, I define it as you're pricing outputs, not inputs, right? You're pricing what you're delivering to the client, what value that produces for them versus how many hours it took you to do it, right? And I think that's a fundamental shift because one limits your revenue to how many hours in a day you have. The other limits it to how much knowledge and expertise you can apply to a situation, right? And I think that's also in this niche conversation, your insight is so much more valuable. One, because you get there in 10 seconds because you've seen it 1,000 times, right?
Yeah.
Versus having this whole dragged out process.
And if I build by the hour because I'm an expert,
expert.
I'm going to make less than I've ever
money.
made.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that doesn't
Exactly.
work.
So I mean, that's how I define value billing. Which might be a little bit different, but I mean, so every client, I'm looking at what they need, and I have my rough ranges of how much things cost based on what I believe it'll take to get it done.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's what I've done since the beginning, and it's worked out very well, with very little pushback because they understand that you're doing something, and people value, believe it or not, getting it done fast. They don't value you sitting there taking 10 hours to do it.
Well, they also value knowing what the heck it's going to cost for you to do something.
Right, and
They
that's
don't value this
predictable.
unknown, who knows what it's going to cost me based on how slow you are.
Yeah.
I mean, how do I have control over that? So what we do, and I don't know, and it's always scary for me to talk about pricing knowing that ed class is anywhere nearby. but what we've done, and you get into things and you don't know how complex something is until you start, right? And that's the challenge that we have with a fixed price of any kind. We take the risk that we spend 5,000 years and we never come out with anything. And so what we've done is really scope out the work in chunks so that we do a build engagement, a fee engagement, where we come in and look at what we have, and that's always phase one. And then we say we're going to do these other things, but it's going to depend on what we find in phase one as to how we're going to price the service.
Yeah.
And even if you don't want me to do phase 2 and 3, you'll get value out of phase 1. I'll give you a document, I'll give you recommendations, I'll give you information. And if you don't want to pay me for this other stuff, then you can take that and get somebody else. And so we pitch that as a service by itself. And that gives us a lot of insight about what we're dealing with. And we can be informed enough to then go in and bid on whatever else comes out of that engagement. But we don't know until we get in there and start working through the stuff. And I don't want to do all that investigative stuff for free.
And we shouldn't, because there's a lot of value behind that.
We're adding value at that point.
Okay, we want I'm going to come over to you, Jim, in just a second. We want to put the third, this is the third this time, really, CPE code on the screen. This is the third code you'll need for this session. Okay, and Jim, I think you wanted to comment on this topic we're talking about right here, and then I will, on pricing, and then I will hop over to you also with another question.
Sure. And what we're finding, especially with the tax professionals, that one of the easiest ways to lean into advisory services, one of the easiest ways to update your business model is by communicating the tax savings per strategy. As you're coaching your clients to implement proactive tax saving strategies and quantifying those tax savings, then it becomes really easy for you to change your model from the traditional hourly into maybe value billing. Maybe you are focused on a percentage of those tax savings, or maybe it's more of an ongoing subscription to get into a planning mode year round. And so from the tax side, it's super, super easy to create a very high ROI on your fees and the value that you're delivering for clients. You can do the same thing from the accounting side, coming over from, the accounting compliance and starting to focus on, as Aaron said, the outputs. What are the goals that we're going to try to achieve and reach? And just make sure that you're measuring those so that you are demonstrating, big ROI. And it's really, you have great opportunity with a lot of your clients to do that. And so I think it's much easier to do that with cloud tools, with amazing data analytics and visualization, and the ability, we're great with numbers. We're great with reporting. The tools are available today for you to demonstrate a very high ROI and shift your model into more focusing on their outputs, their goals, and powering prosperity for those clients, and then getting paid for that. And then I'm not going to touch any more about billing because I know it's coming up
Yeah,
next.
next session.
I just want to make one quick comment
Okay.
on that. So I also, part of that conversation, like you said, coming from compliance and kind of moving from hourly to more of a value billing type thing, I think also just being transparent and honest with your clients and being like, I want to align our interests, right? Hourly makes me more interested in putting my slowest, worst person on your account because the more they work, the more I get paid.
Yeah.
But value billing encourages me to put my very best person on your account and to get it done as fast as possible to deliver that to you as at the highest quality that I can. Right, like that's a fundamental shift, and they're business owners. They understand that a lot of the time, right?
So I think Ed calls it value pricing, because what we're doing as traditional accountants is the worst kind of value billing. I used to record all of my hours and look at it and go, this is too much. It took me too long, and I would write down because I thought the value was lower than what it actually incurred. And so many of us are doing negative value billing.
Okay, fair.
But it's the pricing that we set up front where we have a conversation and set it.
Yeah.
That changes the way we do the work, but I always do that too. Is it
I
billing or
use them
pricing?
interchangeably 'cause
Is
it's
it
the only
billing
way
or
that I
pricing?
charge.
I know it.
That's all I
know
do.
it. Exactly.
I get it wrong intentionally so I can set him up.
That's
There you
right.
go.
So
I
He
think
loves it.
Gail's ready to shift gears.
I know, really quickly. We only have a couple minutes left. So I think we've done a good job of selling people on the idea that maybe having a niche practice would be useful and beneficial and satisfying. What about the pitfalls? What are the risks? Are there downsides of going into a niche practice? Or, I mean, Jim, I know you've spoken to a lot of accountants out there who are doing this. What kind of disappointments are they having? And how can you avoid that stuff?
Yeah, so I think it's a great question. And Gail, I will, go to one of my favorite people in Atlanta. Andrew has a great thriving practice, and he focused on restaurants. That was his niche before the pandemic. Let me just say, the last 2 years has been hard, very hard. So that's where the 1 to 3 areas can be helpful. So when you do focus, again, make sure that it's not something that is very cyclical, could be recession. I used to live in the oil and gas industry, and I loved it. Oil and gas people are wonderful. They have these huge highs. It's a roller coaster. And as soon as they cash out and they make 50 million, they pour it all back into the ground, and, then everything goes bust. And so make sure that you've got a niche that is going to serve you for the long term. That's one. I'll leave it at that and let others add other risks.
Well, we have focused on one industry, and I had somebody ask me when I spoke at some panel, aren't you afraid that you have all of your eggs in one basket? And I said, yeah, but we're in a geographical area, we're all in the same thing, and we've never all been impacted by the same thing. And then COVID hit, and we had COVID and we had fires. In our Napa Valley area, so we had struggles. But the beauty of that was we could play a big part in helping them deal with it. because we had the focus. So we still survived, and we were able to help them to meet the circumstances that came up. We were able to help them talk about disaster recovery and all that stuff, and also help them apply for all the loans and all the things that came out during COVID. So it was still a benefit, and they actually ended up being okay. The restaurants, on the other hand, was quite a different struggle.
Even the
for folks.
restaurants, I think having that niche almost makes you even more recession-proof than accounting already is. Because when the restaurants were all going belly up, they needed help more than ever, right? And if you knew every nuance about that, then you could help them even better than anyone else. So I think it actually helps when like that industry, if you are industry focused, right? Like there could be lots of different niches, but
You can help even more. That's right.
Yeah, because you know it better, and also again you can benchmark and you can show what other people are doing, which that in itself is invaluable.
And you can advocate on their behalf as well.
Yeah.
And I would
you
say
did a lot
another risk is that if you set yourself out as the expert, you have to remain the expert. And if you start not paying attention to changes in the tax law that affect your niche, or some new regulation has come out and you didn't pick up on it, and all of a sudden all of your clients are impacted by it, and you're the bad guy, that's a risk.
It is absolutely a risk. And we don't ever claim to be an expert. They're experts in their business. We know accounting.
All right, I think we are actually out of time. Thank you guys all so much. Thank you, Jim, for dialing in. Thank you, Aaron and Geni, for sharing your expertise.
Our pleasure.
We are looking forward to the next session as well. I want to really thank Intuit for being the sponsor of this session, for allowing us to do this and to offer CPE credit to all of our attendees, and for allowing Jim to join us even though he's COVID locked down. And want to look forward to the next session, which, as we alluded to already, is going to be about various ways of pricing your services. So don't go away. We will be back at the top of the hour.
Are you ready for e-filing your forms with eFile for Biz? eFile for Biz is an easy-to-use, full-service solution for e-filing, printing, and mailing your information reports, including 1099 and W-2 forms. The intuitive interface walks you through completing your forms quickly, efficiently, and securely. You can bulk upload and edit forms easily. We even have an inline tin checking option to help you ensure your filings are flawless. We've got the 1099 NEC form for reporting independent contractor earnings, as well as other 1099 forms, W-2s, and even ACA forms. Our customers choose us because we've taken the hassle out of filing and sending your forms. We are an authorized IRS transmitter, we're SOC 2 certified and HIPAA compliant. We offer multi-factor authentication, use data encryption, and adhere to strict protections procedures to keep your data secure. There's never been a better time to trust eFile for Biz for e-filing, printing, and mailing your 1099s and W-2s. Set up an account for free, no credit card needed. You only pay when you're ready to file. Whether you are looking for full-service e-file, print and mail, or e-file only, we've got you covered.